New York Attorney General Letitia James says that if Donald Trump does not pay up the over $350 million he's been fined in New York's civil fraud lawsuit, she's gonna get that money one way or another. And that means she's coming for his building, saying if he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek judgment enforcement mechanisms in court. And we will ask the judge to seize his assets. And that is sort of vague. Assets. It could be a car, it could be a way too long red tie. But no, she gets more specific. She says, we are prepared to make sure that the judgment is paid to New Yorkers. And yes, I look at 40 Wall Street each and every day, referencing the Trump building. Well, sorry, today it's the Trump building. Tomorrow, stay tuned to find out. Next week, maybe not if he doesn't pay up. And by the way, I watched the interview with ABC News that she did. She is so calm while she's saying that she's gonna potentially seize his buildings. It's like it's the most casual, everyday thing. And it represents like potentially a fatal blow to Donald Trump. He doesn't wanna lose his cash, but some of these iconic buildings, that is literally who he is. Who is he if he cannot see his name on top of gaudy buildings reflected back at him? Perhaps no one. But I want to be clear about that money because it's more than it might at first have seemed. And it seems like every day there's a new report on how the $350 odd million is going to go up. Turns out it is going up. In fact, it's already out of date. It's going up every single day. According to Forbes, the interest on that, which is already ticking, amounts to about $87,000 every single day until he pays up on that. And mere days after the ruling, Trump already owed $453 million once a 9% post-judgment interest rate ordered by Enron was factored in. So some of this is gonna depend on how fast he transfers the funds over. But bear in mind that prior penalties are having this interest applied to them. And those go as far back as March of 2019, multiple penalties over the intervening years. And so it's already more. If he goes the bond route, it'll be more. If he takes long to pay it off, it'll be more. And that's just the interest. There's certain cutoff points where significant chunks, tens of millions of dollars will be added if he doesn't pay it off at that point. So I'm just waiting to see how he doesn't want to pay. He wants to wait. The longer he waits, the more he has to pay. He's really once again between a rock and a hard place of his own making. Sharon, what do you think about this?
Well, first, I couldn't agree with you more about the interview with the Attorney General. I felt like Viola Davis or someone trained her, not saying that she needed it, but her voice was so soothing. Even when she gave that little presser and said, art of the deal, no, art of the steal. Like the way she delivered the lines to camera, it was fantastic. But the money, I don't see why he can't call his son-in-law. Doesn't Jared have access to Saudi money and hedge fund money? And okay, so he's not a billionaire and he doesn't have that much cash flow. He can't call people like Jeff Bezos because he's burned that bridge in the past. So I think that it would be lovely to see a building or two seized. I really do. And then see who would buy it and replace, the Trump name on the marquee with something, a lot more appealing to New Yorkers. The money is king, and now that he's running out of it. One more thing, it's too bad he's not raising it on, what is it, GoFundMe? Because then someone could make a complaint now and they could get him wiped off of there. Because if you're already, found guilty of fraud, you can't be on the platform raising money, but he's doing it his own way.
Yeah, look, that's actually a sore spot right now because he's not directly raising money. So other people are raising money for him on that. And seemingly that's allowed to go forward, even though a lot of people are saying it was fairly clear in their terms of service that he should not be able to. But the thing is, if they raise a lot of money, GoFundMe gets a portion of it. So are they necessarily unbiased in this? I don't know. But by the way, before we move on to Donald Trump's reaction to this, I do want to let you know that his money situation is even worse than what I've already indicated in terms of the election. And that is that there's been some trouble with fundraising on the presidential side, in particular, in comparison to how much money is having to be dished out due to his legal troubles. So just yesterday, Trump's Save America PAC reported raising just $8,500 in January. They spent almost $4 million. $8,500 That's like one Koch brothers donation. That's what they got in the whole month. They spent 4 million, nearly all of it, about 3 million was spent in paying for his lawyers. So they did not raise as much as they were dishing out for the legal troubles. At the same time, the Trump campaign itself, that was a PAC, this is his campaign, reported a net loss of more than $2.6 million for the month of January. It raised about $8.8 million, so significantly more than the PAC did. But they spent about $11.5 million. For comparison, his $8.8 million, Donald Trump, God Emperor of the MAGA movement, Nikki Haley raised $11.5 million in the same period, like 30% more. I'm not a mathematician, but she raised more. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no money for him to campaign with. The main super PAC behind his bid, MAGA Inc., had $19.7 million in the bank, so that's something. Again, for context though, Joe Biden's reelection campaign said that as of the end of January, it had $130 million in the bank. So this is not strictly speaking apples to apples comparison, but it is looking like Biden is having more success with the fundraising. Biden notably does not have about 100 indictments against him in multiple court cases at the federal and state level. So he's a little bit freed up to use his money for what it's supposed to be used for, which is campaigning. Whereas Donald Trump is having to dish it out to lawyers. Again, not his money in these cases. This is donor money that's being sent into that, but there is an opportunity cost to that. So any quick thoughts about the money situation?
Well, yeah, and Biden doesn't even have to defend the Biden crime family these days because much of that's been debunked, if not all of it. I think that lawyers cost, and even when you're Donald Trump and you threaten everybody and you try to scare away donors and everything else, there comes a point where you're vulnerable. And money talks, and he seems to be vulnerable here. You can't keep paying out lawyers like this. And I don't know what's up with the $8,500. I cleaned out a storage unit and made about that much. Okay. Now, granted, it was about 30 years worth, but you can raise that by just looking around your home and selling things on Craigslist. So I think that's a huge red flag.
Yeah, I mean, you can raise more money than that just selling crappy gold sneakers. You could raise quite a bit more.
OnlyFans, that could go on and on.
Here's the thing: if Donald Trump started an OnlyFans, first of all, no shame to anyone making their living off OnlyFans. Sex work is work. But if Donald Trump did it, he would make a lot of money. We live in a country with a lot of people who have a lot of interests. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying Donald Trump is not to my taste, but this is to the taste of a lot of people, including people like Melania, who was genuinely attracted to him. That's an actual thing. She was really attracted to him, the person that he was. Nothing contextual about his business empire or his money. She loved him for him.